Imagine the fate of the world resting on your shoulders. Now, imagine it rests on something you can't even control, the weather. This is the incredible, true story of James Stagg, a Scottish meteorologist whose controversial forecast became the most important in history, and the key to the WWII landings. June 1944, the largest amphibious invasion force ever assembled, is ready. Over 150,000 soldiers, thousands of ships and aircraft, all waiting for one word: go. The Supreme Allied Commander, Dwight D. Eisenhower, has chosen June 5th as the day to storm the beaches of Normandy. Everything is set, but there's one massive, incontrôlable variable, the notoriously fickle English Channel. A storm at the wrong moment could spell absolute disaster. To manage this immense risk, the Allies assembled a team of the best meteorologists from both Britain and America. But they couldn't agree. The Americans, using methods proven in the Pacific, were optimistic. The British Royal Navy and Air Force teams were more cautious. And then there was James Stagg, the chief meteorologist for the Allied Expeditionary Force. Stagg was a dour no-nonsense Scot, a civilian who'd been drafted into the military structure. He was seen by some as overly pessimistic, a stick in the mud, almost a failed weatherman in the eyes of his more confident American counterparts. His job was to take these conflicting reports and give Eisenhower one single, definitive forecast. The pressure was unimaginable. As late May turned into early June, the weather models looked promising. The American team, led by Colonel Irving P. Crick, was bullish, predicting a period of calm, stable weather perfect for the invasion. Based on this, the initial decision was made. D-Day would be June 5th. Convoys began to leave their ports, steaming towards a destiny they believed was just hours away. But James Stagg was deeply uneasy. His analysis, relying on detailed observations from ships and weather stations deep in the Atlantic, showed something different. He saw the telltale signs of a violent storm system forming, one that would hit the channel with gale-force winds and torrential rain right on June 5th. Picture the scene at Eisenhower's headquarters at Southwick House. It's the evening of June 3rd. The military leaders are all there: Montgomery, Ramsey, LaMallory. Stagg walks in, his face grim. He tells Eisenhower that the forecast has changed dramatically. He predicts force 6 winds, high seas, and a cloud base so low that air support would be impossible. Landing craft would be swamped, paratroopers would be scattered, and bombers would be blind. It would be a slaughter. The American forecasters argued fiercely against him. They called his prediction crazy, insisting the good weather would hold. Stagg, outnumbered and under immense scrutiny, stood his ground. He was so convinced, so adamant, that he staked his entire reputation on it. Imagine the courage it took to look the most powerful general in the world in the eye and tell him his multi-million-dollar plan, years in the making, was about to fail. Eisenhower was in an agonizing position. Postponing meant recalling ships already at sea, a logistical nightmare that risked tipping off the Germans. But going ahead in a storm was suicide. Trusting the lone, gloomy Scot over his own American experts, Eisenhower made a gut-wrenching decision. "I'm quite positive we must give up this attempt," he said. D-Day was postponed. The ships were ordered to turn back. The world held its breath. On the morning of June 5th, the day the invasion was supposed to happen, Stagg's crazy forecast came true. A furious storm lashed the Normandy coast. Winds howled, waves crashed onto the beaches. Had the Allies landed, it would have been an unmitigated catastrophe. Stagg had been right. He had saved countless lives and, quite possibly, the entire operation. But the ordeal wasn't over. The invasion couldn't be delayed indefinitely. The tide and moon conditions would only be favorable for a few more days. The next window was June 6th. Now, all eyes were back on Stagg. The storm was still raging. But Stagg, poring over his charts, saw something no one else did. He identified a tiny, fragile gap in the weather. He predicted a brief lull, a temporary break in the storm system that would arrive late on June 5th and last through most of June 6th. Just long enough. It was an incredibly risky call. The weather would be far from perfect, still choppy, still cloudy, but it would be manageable. It was a window, a sliver of a chance. Again, the other meteorologists were skeptical. The conditions were still marginal. To give the green light based on this brief pause in a massive storm front seemed like an insane gamble. On the evening of June 4th, in a smoke-filled room at Southwick House, Stagg presented his final forecast. He looked Eisenhower in the eye and said, "I am confident that a fair interval of weather will follow the current bad spell and last through tomorrow." He laid out the risks. The seas would still be rough, the cloud cover would be broken, but it was, he believed, their only shot. Eisenhower paced the room. He polled his commanders. The air commander was worried about the clouds. The naval commander was worried about the sea state. But they all knew it was now or never. Eisenhower turned to his trusted chief of staff and said, "The boys are all steamed up. They're ready to go." Then, after a long silence, he made the decision that would change the course of history. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's go." Those 3 words, based almost entirely on the conviction of one man who dared to trust his data against all opposition, unleashed the Normandy invasion. On June 6, 1944, the weather was almost exactly as James Stagg had predicted. The skies were overcast, the seas were choppy, but the storm had broken. The lull was just long enough for the Allied forces to establish a beachhead. The German forecasters, seeing the terrible weather on June 5, had assured their commanders that no invasion was possible for days. They grew complacent. German General Erwin Rommel even left the front to travel home for his wife's birthday. The element of surprise, made possible by Stagg's forecast, was critical. The story of James Stagg is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most important battles are fought not on the battlefield, but in quiet rooms, with maps, charts, and the courage of one's convictions. He was never a failed weatherman. He was a brilliant scientist who understood the immense power of nature and wasn't afraid to speak truth to power, even when he was the only one. His forecast didn't just predict the weather, it shaped the future. Without his integrity and bravery, the DID we know might never have happened. So next time you check the weather forecast, remember James Stagg, the man who looked into the heart of a storm and found a window for victory. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as incredible as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more hidden histories that shaped our world. We'll see you in the next video.